Hello, everyone. Welcome to another match in the ALTTPR League. This is Season 5, and it is the Swordless Week, as you can see by Dawn Venture over there, giving us a little bit of a hint. Where is Sword? The answer, unfortunately, is nowhere. I am Hammer Bro, and I am joined in the booth by the one and only Spy. How you doing today, man?
You know, doing pretty well. It's cold and icy outside, but I feel we're gonna have a nice, warm, even match here today, hopefully.
Well, that's what you get for living up north in the U.S.
You know what? It's November, and it waited till now to start instead of October, so I can't complain. And as I called it, oh wow.
Okay, so talking about not being able to complain, that actually isn't a terrible thing to start with. Our runners would have probably preferred something like a hammer that is a little bit more renewable than the magical card for the fire rod, but all things considered, they'll be able to get 2 shots worth of energy here in the Uncle area, as it looks like Julo is going to see what's underneath his crab. Useless, that's unfortunate. So yeah, not a bad way to start. And speaking of somewhat weapons, we got bombs from Uncle. So all things considered, not a bad start.
$5 in the chest out of the Uncle, and also bombs sitting outside of the dam. It'd be interesting to see how those work, given how they were flooded. But you know, I don't think we ask those kind of questions here. Bottle with a fairy on the inside as well. That's actually fairly nice there. Be able to check Sick Kid once he makes his way over to Kakariko.
Yeah, it'll be even nicer if we can manage to pull a mirror somewhat soon, because having that in your back pocket and not having to let go of it when you want to death warp is a really nice thing. But Julo Ninja is going to be heading over to Agnes Cave. This might be the earliest check I've seen.
I was just about to say that. I think this is the earliest I've ever seen anybody make their way over to our Hermit's Cave here.
Meanwhile, Dawn has taken the 3 bombs and 2 fire rod shots and is running through escape.
Very interesting item to find over there, the cape in Agnes Cave. I wouldn't know exactly how I'd feel about that one.
Nice replenishment there for Dawn. I am starting to wonder if we're going to see anything other than bombs and similar things, though. Like, a little variety wouldn't go amiss.
We should maybe see some here very shortly, since Julo's just about to make his way over into Kakariko.
And just for the sake of being upfront, I don't include that big 20 as... Okay, the mirror counts.
Yeah, that'll definitely make routing Hyrule Castle a little bit easier if Julo so desires to go over there. Dawn didn't really find much of anything to speak in the front 3, at least. And without any magic in that fire rod, chose to save and quit, and looks to be giving us actually our first map check of the day.
I did not see desert, but I saw crystals on Eastern and Hera.
Desert looked to be the green pendant today. Well, now that begs the question, if you find an early glove, you have the fire rod in hand. Well, I hate being posed with that question.
Well, the question I was kind of more thinking is, how much is that mirror going to potentially affect things immediately off the bat? Because with that fire rod, Dark Cross is in logic.
Was that a Samaria cane?
I think so, but I'm not willing to bet much on that.
It was either a Samaria cane sitting on LJ there or the bottom of Big 20, or a 20 rupee, I should say. It was something red and thin. Okay, it wasn't Samaria.
No, that was just a big 20 looking back at it, but... One of the interesting, like, never talked about skills that I swear these runners have is the ability to look at things for a tiny fraction of a second and get all the information they need. It's not fair.
Oh man, talk about a big payoff there on Julo Ninja's side. That early, I guess you could call it some form of meme routing down to the dam for that bottle pays off with half magic from Sick Kid.
And that's a good point. If we don't pull a bottle in these next couple of checks here, that is not going to be something that Dawn's going to have for a little bit. And that could end up being a massive advantage, especially if, you know, Fire Rod ends up being our main and only weapon for the next 20 minutes, which it very easily can.
Granted, it's not much of a necessity item, but in a mode especially like this, where you don't have any sword, and currently right now you're literally just walking around with a Fire Rod and a Samaria cane, you're not gonna say no to half magic at all.
Speaking of swords, in case you weren't aware, all swords are turned into green 20, so that's what that first 20 in the well was.
Ooh, that's interesting. Looks to be the hammer sitting on library today. That could either mean we're going to have a very early or a very late boots.
So basically it means nothing.
Really not. It just gives you the idea that eventually I'm probably going to run into the boots before the seed's over, or I'm going to have to. So you can take solace in the fact of knowing that you'll have to, you know, be able to dash around and stop every 3 squares because you're about to run into an enemy, and you remember you don't have a sword.
I will say, like, as useful as the knowledge is to be like, okay, as soon as I get this, I can go get that, it can also just absolutely bait you into doing things or not doing things. Because, like, for instance, a dungeon that requires the hammer to complete, like Pod, you might not want to go into because then you know you're going to be just giving yourself a double dip. But if the boots are there, for instance, it just puts you in a spot where, you know, you just didn't want to do it, and now that's the answer.
Right, and since you brought up Pod, I believe it is also worth mentioning too, one of the other intricacies of this League Swordless mode is that there's actually only one bow placed that functions as both the regular bow and the silvers. That little oddity alone could also push to keep people out of places such as Pod that you mentioned longer than it normally would, I would guess you could say, knowing that there'd be 2 bows around.
Right. So, mini Moldorm Cave coming through here. Ice Rod, Flute, and... oh, there was something else in there, darn it.
The lamp. Our way is now lit up.
Yeah, so Julo is going to immediately grab all that stuff. Now, this flute also means that that Dawn could be pretty quickly back to Kakariko. Because, as I recall, that ferry was in the dam. So, it wouldn't surprise me to see a dam to Mini Moldorm Cave check, and then just come back here and grabbing half magic.
Right, and with Dawn Venture heading right south out of Link's house, it looks like that might be exactly the play we are going to get here. Julo making a play right after my own heart here. As soon as you get that flute and activate it, regardless what you got up the mountain, go up, take that old man, get him home. At the very least, you get yourself a nice 7 quit spot and look at a couple of items that sometimes are usually left around till the very end.
I don't know that I like this play over doing escape and cleaning up the normal light world checks, if only because right now there's only going to be one weapon that's going to be able to kill Moldorm, and in the interest of not having to double dip, you could pull boots out of one of those aforementioned checks.
Right, especially since we do know where that hammer is sitting, which is definitely something that's probably going to be waiting on the back of both of our runners' minds today.
Absolutely. So there are certain items that are more of a kind of fill in the dot kind of items. Call them fetch questy if you want. Mirror being one of those in that it opens up a lot of stuff, but opens up stuff that's kind of one-off-ish. Hammer ends up being a combination of unlocking a bunch of big chunks and also some small chunks. So like you really want to get that hammer soon, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking side-eyed at Pod and at Ice Palace and at Swamp, which as I saw was a crystal there, or was a pendant there. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can get into without a hammer but can't complete.
To say, just as you mentioned Pod, I had noticed that Pod looks to be a pendant. That's always wonderful when that happens.
Yeah, so Pod and Swamp both being pendants, which means it could potentially be a very quick seed with two of the largest dungeons being pendants, and could also be a very slow seed.
You know, the other interesting thing to keep in mind with Swamp being a pendant, and the fact that we know we're going to be getting our boots at some point in this seed.
Oh no. You're already thinking about that hookshot.
I mean, to be fair, I think it was Don Venture who mentioned something about it in the race time room before things even began, so...
If you're referring to the Moldorm bounce, that was actually me. So if this ends up being a hookshot as wear seed, I'm sure that both runners are going to be giving me some side-eye for that.
Yeah, maybe not if they can hover. Who knows?
Don Venier actually said no hovering, so I was the one who chimed in with the Moldorm bounce. So we'll see how it goes.
All right.
That blue mail, though, not something that I mentioned when Julo got it, but that blue mail being something that is wonderful to have in a swordless seed.
Definitely, and along with that, you could also say the same about any sort of bottles that you're going to walk across. I can guarantee if there's one sitting out somewhere, say in like hammer pegs or on a ledge somewhere, you're probably going to see the runners pick those things up that they would normally just kind of leave sitting around.
Right. The unfortunate part about not having a sword is that you don't have like an immediate defense against something running up and giving you a hug. And even the best runners you just take damage. It's so hard not to. Okay, so our 5/6s are across the world. We have Meyer and TR. I did catch that time.
I still think it's crazy the amount of pendant pods you see in this sort of a mode where you only have one bow to speak of.
It does seem to happen a lot, but on the flip side, what I don't seem to see a whole lot is a combination pod Eastern pendant.
No, when you see those, you kind of start sweating a little bit and warming your fingers up for a mimic clip up the climb.
Right, the potential is there, yeah.
But on that note, I've also seen quite a few seeds where the bow is just kind of minding its own business inside of Ice Palace. Like, just always in the weird spots, it seems like.
All right, so with this mirror in hand, I'm willing to bet that Julo goes ahead and does at least some part of the backup escape here. Although with the glove, could also do a just an S and Q to Sanctuary.
Yeah, I'd almost kind of bet on the point of get down here, mirror after Zelda's Cell, go to the Dark Cross, and I believe it's actually would be a little faster saving, quitting, and dropping in the back with that glove.
Maybe, but since they haven't pulled a small, it might be better to just S and Q here and then potentially be able to skip the Dark Cross.
Also fair. Looks like Dawn Venture is going to be giving us a look here at Hera Basement. I don't believe we saw this on Julo's side.
No, we did not. This is our first coffee break.
On the back today of Sankway to have our 300 rupees of the boots and a key. So now you're going to see Julo take that key right to Dark Cross from here. But those boots, definitely a nice find, because now you know you got the hammer.
Yeah, and with that being said, we are just a moon pearl away from Dark World now.
$50 in the basement of Hera over there on Dawn Venture's side. Yeah, pays off a little bit, I guess, but when you're already over 500 rupees, bordering on 1,000, you don't really care to see any more of those.
Yeah, all that really does is knock out an item. And this is why I suggested doing escape before going up the mountain, because now Julo is going to grab that hammer and then eventually make his way right back up there.
Yeah, but with the key in the back of escape there, you needed to actually go up the mountain. Grab those gloves before making your way back down to the boots for the hammer. Unless, of course, we run into a glove over here in Saha's area, which would be kind of interesting.
I was going to say I'm going to laugh really hard if there ends up being a glove sitting here.
And it's just kind of one of the...
Oh! All right, so we're about to go knock out our first crystal of the day.
That hammer can wait a little bit now, I guess.
Right. The amusing thing is if Pod had been a crystal here, we may have seen a flute over to Kakariko, grab the hammer, and then flute to 5 and just do Pod and Easter at the same time.
They're still missing that moon pearl, so they wouldn't be able to do Pod quite yet.
That's right. I keep forgetting about that. Where is our moon pearl? How is that the last thing we get here?
Could be in one of these bonk checks that I don't believe Julo has done yet.
Also fair. Could also be sitting on Lumberjack now. Just want to throw that fun out there. Oh no, we already know there's Big 20.
Oh, we already checked that.
Dawn is going to come immediately over here and grab that hammer.
Yeah, I definitely like this part of the play here, going over here. Going for what you know before checking something else. Yeah, at the very least, it being the hammer as well gives you just about the most offense that you're going to have in this seed.
Right, at least the most renewable offense, yeah.
Now we'll probably see... Oh, up to the mountain again. That's kind of interesting. Makes sense, though, dude, since that does get you over to the entirety of Paradox Cave.
Yeah, that is also a crystal and 8 items over there, at minimum, assuming that nothing else is found.
Right, and Don could be operating under the assumption that I feel quite a bit of people do, knowing that there's only one bow out there, that the chances are better of running into it away from Eastern than I am from finding it anywhere in the Eastern area.
Exactly, yeah. And people honestly just have preferences. Some people like the Eastern area a bit more than others. I don't know if Julo is one of those people, or if it was just kind of running over here on a whim real quick. But it's definitely something that's more reminiscent of something that I would do necessarily over you, and it's just a routing difference.
Right. Except in this case, too, I mean, you have...
Did you see that? The fairy
Yeah.
popped out of the bonk rocks.
Yeah, if you bonk or dash just right, you can have the fairy pop out.
I've never seen that. Interesting.
It goes under the same premise of being able to, I believe it is, hookshot that fairy without bonking the rocks.
I did not know that either. Oh. Okay, so this is starting to get to the point of potentially running around on a wild goose chase.
All of a sudden, the green pendant now is looking like a very, very viable option for Dawn Venture here.
Right. Also, since we do have the hammer, we can get a grab of the ether medallion, or the tablets, because the tablets do require a hammer to pull. You can read them just like you normally can with anything, but in lieu of having two swords, you have to have the hammer to be able to actually grab the item on the tablets.
And other than that, the only other place you would be able to use one of those functions, such as, you know, like the tablet or the medallion functions, I guess I kind of group them together. Speaking of, there's a moon pearl on Dawn Venture's side. The only place you'd be able to use one of those medallions once you do find them is if there is an added tile to the floor of certain screens.
Right, a couple of spots in Ice Palace definitely come to mind.
I still think they need to add one to Red Stalfos room in GT.
Oh, quit being a baby.
Come on, I like my ether medallions there. Meanwhile, though, on the left-hand side of your screen, Julo Ninja just shy of 22 minutes, knocking off your first crystal of the day, and looks to be heading over, grabbing their hammer right thereafter.
Meanwhile, Dawn has decided they're going to take this hammer and proper Dark World access and jump right into Hype Cave.
So now this is going to be interesting. By no stretch of the imagination is this a wrong play on Dawn Venture's side of the screen. It's just interesting from our perspective because we know where that bow is hiding this seed, and it's going to be interesting wondering when Dawn will make their way back over to Sahasrah's closet for it.
As it is, though, only thing the bow really helps with, other than obviously clearing Eastern, is making Vitreous not awful. So, as long as that bow has gotten to before we get to that point, which I think we're still a little bit away from at least, it's not really going to be a big deal.
Right, it's more of a convenience item, but that you do want, you do want it before the game is over. You do kind of need it to be able to defeat Ganon at the very least. It's also one of the more strong offensive choices you're gonna have in this mode. So it's something as early as you can get it, you kind of prefer it.
Right, but the problem is that most bosses don't really care for it either way, which is what kind of limits its availability for big stuff. Something to keep in mind right now is that, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, Dawn has 0 bombs. You can grab some bombs here in Skull Woods if Dawn is paying attention to that. If not, this could end up being an issue for going through Village of Outcasts, because there are a couple of bombs required.
And oddly enough, I don't think we've really actually seen anything in the bomb pack yet today either.
I don't believe so either. I haven't seen a whole lot of drops just straight up, to be honest. I think part of that is due to the fact that we've just now gotten a handful of weapons that we can easily reuse, so now we can start killing enemies other than the ones that are exactly required, as Skull Woods tells Dawn, you can go somewhere else, please and thank you. Oh, another thing to keep in mind while we're talking about and thinking about that single arrow is that there are 2 of them in the game.
Mm-hmm.
As Spy had mentioned previously, the one bow is bow and silvers, and the question, what did they do with that other item? Answer is turned it into a single arrow, because twice the destiny means twice the fun.
Personally, I just feel it adds more insult to injury, especially when you walk across that second one, sitting there thinking like, okay, one of those could have been my bow. Well, where the heck are you, dang it?
Yeah, as it is, Julo at the very least is not going to have that issue finding the bow and silvers first out of those 3. So, all things considered, not terrible.
It does look, while he is up here, Julo is opting to finish out Hera. Remember, Julo did not do Hera Basement, so knows there is still one item yet sitting down here that they have access to in this dungeon. It's not going to be on Moldorm, however, as far as we know.
Right, and because Tower of Hera is just a regular crystal, there's going to be no harm, no foul for Dawn completing it last. Not going to be a big deal.
Right. On speaking of Dawn, on Dawn's side there, you saw another one of the little nuances of a swordless mode. Any place where you'd have to slash curtains, the curtains have been so graciously already opened for us. Almost as if Ganon's just kind of begging you to kill his minions and fight him. I mean, if he knew you didn't have a sword, why would he open the curtains for you?
Because the magic of the hero will always find a way.
Simultaneous boss explosion, simultaneous compass raises, and simultaneous crystal raises for both of our players. That is the second dungeon done on Julo's side, first on Dawn Venture's side here at 27 minutes on in the match.
And everyone's favorite ped check is not relevant today.
Stash. Now, is that 100 or 300?
I don't know. It used to... See, I thought that Rupee Horde applied to a 300 or a 100. So it might be a 50. It could also be a 100, or maybe it's a 300 and they just changed the text. I couldn't tell you. Either way, we're not coming back for it.
No, but it's just kind of fun to wonder about, or at least I think it is. I mean, I'm just odd like that, though.
We all know.
The only pointed check we will have of the evening over on Julo's side, Spike Cave giving us bombs.
Hold on a minute. You got to show some love for the Spike Chest and Mire.
I mean, that one's just kind of short and sweet. It's a little poke, I think.
Dawn, meanwhile, did remember to grab some bombs while he's in here, and we are running through Skullwoods now trying to find an item, please and thank you.
Yeah, back to front, a very normal routing decision here for Skullwoods, especially when you do have that Samaria Cane and Fire Rod in tow. Knock out the boss when it's a crystal, hope you get an item. Unfortunately not, and go search around for the other items.
That lineup was really cool, and we got a medallion for it. I've never seen that.
Yeah, same premise as the sword spin. If your fingers can work fast enough and cancel your dash at just the right point. Otherwise, if you're on emulator, good luck.
All right, meanwhile, Julo is going to give us the check of the other tablet, and it's just 10 euros, so nope. Dawn thankfully remembered to grab a couple of bombs in Skull Woods, so he does have one here for the brewery.
Speaking of things you would normally see left behind that people pick up in a swordless mode, when you're shy a couple bombs, you kind of go grab some bombs when you see them as well.
Yeah, everything tends to be a little more safe in terms of what you grab and when you grab it.
Also interesting to see if at any point during this race, if either of our runners will actually make their way over to Capacity Cave. Give them a little bit extra breathing room with their bombs and or arrows.
That's something that I feel like Dawn is more likely to do, if in fact they find access into Mire before finding those silvers, because Vitreous is truly one of the more terrifying bosses with no bow and no sword.
Right, the hammer hits, you can do a decent amount with them, but you just kind of like having a good slathering of bombs to kind of just huck in the way of the mini eyes before you start having to pull out your hammer.
Right, and the thing that sucks about Vidi is that regardless of your male, they do a bunch of damage too.
You hit the right pixel there for the dash through the room, Dom, but unfortunately you're missing that sword. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get it without a sword.
Yeah, at that point we're talking perfect lineup and perfect enemy RNG.
Right. To be honest, when do the enemies in this game ever want to cooperate with anything, for that matter?
They cooperate just often enough to throw you off when they do. As we pulled our second medallion now.
Yep, Dawn grabbing Bombos out of the attic chest there, adding it to their collection of medallions, which now includes Bombos and Ether. Would almost say with 2 medallions in hand, depending on what order you find the other items in, I'd feel a little more comfortable doing the whole 66% gamble with Meyer and TR there now.
Yeah, the odds aren't quite in your favor for both of them, being a 4 of 9, but still pretty close to 50-50 at 44.5% roughly.
Okay, you work with numbers on a daily basis. We get it.
I'm just providing the information for our listeners. That's all I'm doing. All right, so it looks like we are about to have another set of paralleled boss fights here. Blind is one of those fights that's really, really easy with a sword and can get mildly scary without.
However, the flip side is, with that Soma Cane in hand, it does kind of make it a little bit nicer. It's probably one of the more preferred items, with, of course, Burna being the top of that list when you're lacking a sword.
One more hit and we'll be okay. Amazing. And just like that, we're going to have basically a high five here. Julo grabs Skull Woods and Dawn grabs Thieves.
Getting a little protection in the form of a shield for that boss kill on Dawn Venture's side. That puts them at 2 crystals to the 3 on Julo's side.
And there's our 3rd medallion.
All right, just when you were wondering if that would be a question in this game. Yeah, nope, never mind.
I would like to point out that all 3 medallions were sitting in Village of Outcasts. 2 of them just sitting in Thieves Town itself.
I mean, I guess the seed wanted to make that bit nice and easy for us today, at least.
Right. So what are we strictly speaking required to find? Mitts? Is that it?
We also need the bow, of course, on Dawn Venture's side, but as an overall, mitts would be about it, because, of course, those flippers being optional, since we can fake flipper our way nice palace.
Right. Yeah, Dawn needs the bow, Julo needs a bunch of medallions, but I think mitts are all that we're looking for.
Yep, and those medallions, Julo will basically just kind of walk right on into here, going through all these dungeons, as well as a Village of Outcasts, so those aren't really going to be too much of a question. It'll just come down to where those mitts are located, which means certain things like Smith Chain, completely forgotten about this game.
Right, and that's kind of going to be the big thing. Julo is almost definitely going to find everything required outside of those mitts before finding the mitts, whereas Dawn might not. So that's where kind of like what is your go mode could end up being really, really relevant.
Right, now on Dawn Venture's side, looks like we are venturing on into Desert Palace with that book, knowing that it is also a green pendant. Not that bad of a decision. It'll at least push Dawn closer towards that bow that is sitting over with Sahasrahla. Could be the whole idea of I'm going to get the green pendant, then I'm going to make my way over there and see what I can find in the pod eastern area all at one singular time.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. The only big disadvantage here is if Catfish is sitting on something, because then I feel like it's more likely that Dawn could grab that bow and then look through Eastern and a second pendant pod for those mitts, and if it's not there, that's a bit of a time sink. But as long as Dawn gets over to those to that Eastern area relatively soon, it shouldn't be too terribly big of a deal either way.
Yeah, I honestly don't see where Dawn doesn't make their way over there. And well, Hookshot has been found. It is in King's Tomb, which is kind of an interesting way you need to access that in this seed so far at this point. You need to mirror yourself in there from the Dark World.
Yeah, the interesting thing, though, is that Hookshot's not really going to be relevant for us at all. At least not until we find those slippers, because Hookshot Cave's not relevant. Since mitts will be our go mode, and yeah, Swamp isn't relevant until we find the flippers. So
yeah, all that Hookshot really does at this point just lets Julo know that they won't need to worry about hovering or their opponent hovering or anything. GT across the Moldorm 2 gap is nice and easy now.
Right, no shenanigans to get to Aga. It's just a straight up sort of thing. Speaking of Aga, there's another item that our runners probably wouldn't mind, and that's finding the bug net.
That is true. While you can do it with the hammer, the bug net just kind of makes it a little more foolproof.
Right, the angle of refraction by the hammer is pickier than it has any right to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of a certain flair to be able to get that lined up just right to get at least one ball bounced back, and other than that, you just kind of hope you don't eat the other shots from Aga's images while you're trying to reflect the one.
Right, essentially. On top of that, the net does give you a little bit of invulnerability. It's a quicker spin than the sword is, but it still gives you something. That being said, I don't think we really have anything left to check other than the pod area and its relevant Dark World checks up towards the east/northeast. So I feel like progression's coming soon.
Yeah, it definitely should be at the very least. I mean, if you want Dawn to kind of pull out a little bit of an advantage here, you'd definitely want to see it on the green pendant, because that would walk Dawn into go mode as soon as that's turned in.
That would be a heck of a Sahasrar's closet for Dawn.
That it would be. It would just then, of course, you know, it gets back to the whole situation though on Dawn's side of I don't have a hook shot, but you know.
And it's at this point you start asking, does that matter?
Right.
Obviously, only Dawn can answer that question, but it's just there's enough people who know how to bypass the hook shot at this point through the many methods that we have it for that you just, I don't know, there's options.
All right, Dawn, moment of truth. Are we immediately turning this green pendant in? We're going for the flute. Is this going to be a 3 or a 5?
So this, if I had to guess, is going to be a North Dark World check. Which means we could get a kern jump into Catfish and Pyramid Fairy.
That's very realistic here. Yes.
I actually like this if Dawn is comfortable with that kern jump, because that makes the eastern/pod area the last thing on your list, which means that you are less likely to run into some dungeons looking for the singular bow that exists and not need to. It also means that if the downside is that if those wonderful mitts are in one of those first two checks, being Catfish or Pyramid Ledge, Dawn might bail, and that could mean that we are not go moding a bunch of crystals when we could. So we'll see how it plays out.
Right, with this kind of routing, especially if Dawn does do that kern jump after grabbing their hookshot in King's Tomb, because we can only assume they'll make their way that far. If Dawn does do that kern jump, you don't really want to see those mitts over on Catfish.
Catfish especially, yeah, because if it's Pyramid Ledge, it might be a situation where, like, well, I'm at least going to go check Sahasrara or something. But if not, you know, you're sitting there with 3 dungeons you can full clear. And it's hard not to at least go clear 2 of them in Mire and Ice Palace, especially because Mire also comes with 3 items in the area as well, so... Nice blind fight for Julo.
Will gets his first shield of the night, hoisting their 4th crystal.
Yeah, and with 3 crystals done on one side and 4 crystals on the other, sub 45 minutes, this is a relatively quick seed. And since we don't really have much left right now, unless we find the terrible flippers, and even that really would only unlock flipper checks and swamp. With a pending go mode mitts, this is looking like a relatively friendly seed, honestly.
This looks like Don's gonna give the curtain jump a try and nails it first try.
Yep, Dawn giving the current jump a try, and Julo giving that green pendant desert a try. I don't dislike this, especially with as early as that book was. I feel like both of our runners are kind of looking like, okay, well, the tablets were nothing. Is book a complete and total waste, or is there something in here for?
It is kind of an interesting play from Julo's perspective, knowing that you do have access to the entirety of pod with hammer, bow, and lamp all in hand. But at the same time, I can see the point of coming over here first, grabbing that green pendant, and then turning it in on your way into pod.
Exactly. Well, that's actually really convenient because we could go turn that in here in a second. I imagine we're going to see a Zora check as, yeah, we completely forgot about Zora, but that's also an option. Oh, so Dawn is going to go ahead and get rid of that magic as we see a shield on the ledge there, so that's useless because we are going to see a fake powder next.
Honestly, not a bad decision, especially with the Witch's Hut having their very own flute side service.
Exactly. And with 1,664 rupees, it's not like we're hurting for cash.
Right. Out of almost, if that was on Dawn's mind, maybe expected to see a splash delete to get into Waterfall Fairy first, but yeah.
I don't like that only because we only have a handful of locations that are even relevant at this point.
Right.
I'm going to be hard pressed to stray from stuff that's in Logic right now, especially with Mitts being Go mode. Like there's just a really good chance that this is going to be a really free seed that's going to allow me to skip a bunch of stuff. I'm not checking flipper locations until I get those flippers.
But on the flip side, too, as you say that, we're going out of Logic to check the magic bat here.
Yeah, that one's a little different for me just because it's one item and you can do it super quick. I do agree. I've also been personally saved by doing this a handful of times, so I'm always going to be nicer with this check than I otherwise would for some other checks, definitely.
That is fair, and that's where you could probably see a lot of personal confirmation bias from both the runners coming in to start make their routing decisions for them at this point. Dawn opting to free the ferry. They'll be loading up their bottles here at the stop at the Witch. Always a good option, especially in a swordless seed. Whenever you make a trip right on over to the hut, go ahead and fill them things up because you are going to want them for either extra magic or hearts on your way up the GT climb. The more you can just kind of turn your brain off for that and run into, through, and around things, the better.
I would like to point out real quick that while you were chatting, Julo absolutely destroyed the Landmos with some silvers. So that was a really clean fight. And after all the insanity and all the shenanigans, we are both running into the pod area and everybody's got a green pendant.
Something pendant pod, right?
Something go mode right here? Nope, just bombs. But the good news for Dawn is that Bo is going to be here, and thus he will also have a go mode Mitts.
Returning the favor to Sahasrahla, just making sure he's not without a few explosives.
Well, just going to leave that one alone.
Just like that, because of the need to mirror there, Julo and Dawn are basically step for step right on top of each other at this point.
It could be really, really fun.
What's that?
Mitch sitting on Pyramid Ledge.
That would be fun. I mean, that would have almost been a place I would have preferred to check after grabbing that catfish item before making any other moves. But then again, too, like you said, we still had left Zora out for large at that point. So, you know, kind of what do you do? Pick your poison, basically.
Right. That's a situation where early game routing kind of controls late game routing, because taking you, for instance, with the early money, you're more likely to do your fake flippers immediately, which means that you would have just grabbed that mushroom and then maybe fake powdered, maybe not, but would have just continued on to go at least check the Pyramid Ledge first, where Dawn being in that situation with the Zora not being grabbed and then without flippers, it's a real pain in the butt to get back there. So like the S and Q makes sense. And if it ends up not being in that one spot, it ends up being, 6 to 1, half dozen the other, really. But if we don't pull it out of pod here, then, it's kind of looking like that might be our answer. Or whatever we do pull out of pod ends up being the answer.
All right, either way, all roads essentially lead to pod right here. We're going to find something. Whether it's the mitts or, if it ends up being, say, our flippers to push us into Swamp Palace, because that would be a thing. You never really know here, but there's going to more than likely be something sitting in here, unless, like I said, there's something else that we've completely and utterly forgotten about at this point.
Well, all the fetch quests have been grabbed, and so has the mitts, so that is go mode for Julo.
And is it to answer the questions? There they were. But about 51 minutes and 30 seconds, a Julo Ninja hits go mode.
All right, so on Julo's side, we are going to have a go mode Ice Palace, go mode Mire, and go mode TR. Question, what are the medallions? Answer, they don't matter, we have all of them. Hey, Ether, aww. I wanted Julo to hammer the pterodactyl.
I mean, at the very least, Julo could have given us the burb toss.
No, hammering the bird is so much more satisfying.
I mean, just because you need to live up to a little bit of your namesake there.
Obviously.
But at the very least, the medallion isn't Quake, so that bird does not get to hit us 5, 6, or 7 times while we're waiting for Mire to open its door for us.
For all that we make fun of this game, at least those hits wouldn't count. Like, we take 1 hit of damage, but we wouldn't take 5 hits of damage, because that would be death.
Right. Although, on the flip side, it would actually kind of be funny if they all counted and somebody just didn't kill the bird before opening Mire, realizing that, and, Mire's open, but now you're dead.
The murder dactyl, 20 hearts of damage. Poof.
Man, that would certainly be a thing, wouldn't it?
Alright, so the spike chest that Spy refused to acknowledge, giving us a full heart, so not bad, all things considered.
Okay, maybe that wasn't completely pointless, but if it was going to give us a full heart, it could have at least made it sank heart.
You always demand more. Sometimes you need to shut your face and enjoy the nothing that Rando gives you.
I mean, it's given me enough nothing. I'm sick of it.
Hey! All right, there's the big key. That's 1 dungeon we can run through now. Nope, not run that way. Run the other way.
Oh, Don's giving us an attempt. Oh, just 1 attempt, though.
The irony, though, is that attempt would have been go mode.
That attempt would have saved probably 2 or 3 minutes.
I don't know that I'd go that far, but yeah, probably about a minute.
Yeah, you gotta think about it. Don's gotta go up here, check the big key chest, drop down Stalfos' basement, then make their way in over the entirety of the left. It's gonna be about 2 or 3.
All right, someone pull out a stopwatch. I gotta prove this guy wrong.
I will say though, it was nice awareness on Julo's side to turn back around and quickly hit that switch that was readily available, just to make this room a little bit nicer in Misermire, not having to go up north in the previous one to go hit the switch in there.
Yeah, all things considered, he probably saved a second or two. Would have saved a little more time had he not dashed all the way up and then all the way back down, but probably still a time save either way.
A little bit of a time save. The extra dash probably just got rid of whatever time save was realized there.
Right. With that, Dawn is also in go mode, so let the running begin. As you can see on the screen, pretty evidently, Julo is ahead by roughly a mire and a fly-through of Harrow. Thank you, wall kicks. I love being correct.
Don being a person after my own heart, making Ice Palace your first decision in this sort of a circumstance. I like it. I like it. In which there you got a view in the first room of Ice Palace of one of the tiles placed on the floor that indicates you can use a medallion here if you so have it, with no other real requirements.
Julo temporarily losing his mind there. Or maybe just not moving over one. I was like, oh no, don't forget about Ice Palace.
Something public education can't count? I don't know.
That's incredibly rude.
Hey, I use that joke on myself enough, so I mean, I can use it on other people too, can't I?
Something hit the Ice Palace switch, something.
Would also like to note that it was the number 2 that Julo had a trouble getting to there as well.
So, with all of this being considered, those flippers could be anywhere. Not that they matter in the least, but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, and you're not really concerned too much about them at this point. Of course, both runners are an Ice Palace, but
Not
makes
at
you
all.
wonder that are the flippers behind the mitts, or are the flippers just kind of on the backside of Pod?
That's fair. They could be on the backside of Pod, or could, ironically enough, be the thing that's sitting on that pyramid ledge. In which case, both runners kind of dodged a bullet, because those mitts, or the flippers without the mitts, would have kind of driven them towards the potential of Swamp Palace. So,
I've been one of those that you're kind of looking at, like, which do I want to do? On Dawn's side, I could almost see going into Swamp if those had been the flippers on Pyramid Ledge without that bow at the time. But, you know, who knows? Those are ifs and buts, so we're past that point, and it doesn't really matter.
Julo doing an ice cracker, but only getting about halfway through that first time. There's the full break.
Should have put a little chink in the Ice's armor there before making it all the way through.
Congratulations, everyone. That is the stupidest thing I've said this month.
I don't know if we go that far.
Well, no, you wouldn't.
Don showing us the wonderful combination of Fire Rod and half magic on Cold Stare. Just use that Bombless Medallion to save yourself as much magic as possible, and then just kind of throw as many fireballs as possible at the puffs, keeping them on the wall, and they're no more. At that point, that puts us with Dawn at 4 crystals. While we're about to get a 6th over here on Julo's side. Because remember, Don still has to go in and believe still beat Tower of Hera, having pulled both items out of that earlier.
Yep.
Don't leave us hanging, Don. Give the people what they demand.
Hammer, hammer.
At least Don did something with the bird.
That's fair. That's fair.
Hour and 30 seconds in, over on the left-hand side, Julo hoisting that Ice Palace crystal. Just has a Turtle Rock left to go.
And this is really darn good time, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I feel like if you're in Julo's situation at this point in the seed, you definitely feel good about going into your final crystal literally just past the hour mark.
Right. I would say to kind of counter that, the fact that go mode was almost certainly going to be Mitts does kind of put a damper on that, because I feel like having a Mitts go mode just generally pushes the time of completion of the seed down a bit. But yeah, it's still absolutely feeling fine.
Oh, definitely being locked out of those Mitts required dungeons, the very least 3 of them. Also noting that those 3 dungeons are probably 3 of the longest dungeons that you could potentially walk through outside of Pod, who isn't locked by the Mitts. It does kind of hamstring quite a bit in the seed.
You know, I would almost be willing to bet something that we have Mitts sitting here in TR.
Flippers, you mean?
Yeah, that thing.
I say playing the wrong glitch logic if we're getting into TR without the Mitts here.
No, I'm just playing cross keys. Hush.
That's next week. Wait your turn.
I don't wanna. I like cross keys.
But there is something to be said for that, though. There's seems to be quite a slathering of flippers on laser bridge occurrences I've noticed as well, just in general, more than it should, to the point where you recognize it and you're like, really, again?
I have noticed that, like flippers or hook shot. I swear I'm looking for one of those, and TR is just like, oh yeah, right here.
Got what you need over here. Come join me.
No, I don't want to. I don't have the ice rod yet. Leave me alone.
No, that's just sitting in Mimic Cave when the mirror is on Laser Bridge.
I'll have things that don't sound terrible, but actually are for 500, please, Spy.
Right. Two small keys and a big up front for Julo here in TR.
Yeah, that's nice. That is about as much encouragement as you're gonna get to steal a key and run like heck.
Especially if you pull another one here, but I don't believe we can at this point. Again, something key logic, and it was gonna prove me wrong anyways, so you know.
Turtle Rock said, hold my small key.
So now, yeah, you steal one and you go. I have to say, it's about the friendliest TR I have ever seen in far of dungeon item layouts as well. That was pretty slick there.
Dawn's Ice Rod Spooky ended up working. Looked a little bit sketched there for a second, but was able to line it up correctly and then get the one there. So we are on our way to Vitreous. Hey, Speesby.
Yes.
I know that numbers aren't your thing, but you know how many chests there are in the basement of GT?
There's something around in the very astute area of 21, I believe.
Did you do that intentionally?
Yes, I did.
All right. Well, don't listen to the bozo who's in the booth. Instead, well, don't listen to Spot either. There are 22 locations in the basement of GT. One of them contains the big key. If you're going to want to get your guests in, probably want to do it sooner or later, as Julo is going to be skipping the crap out of this wondrous laser bridge, and then it's going to be a real quick walkover.
So that in mind, is there any place that you have in particular that you kind of want to see this point out here at Hammer?
Always vanilla. Always vanilla. If I wanted to be correct, I would say one of the 4 chests in the compass room. But because I like being silly, like those dead rocks like being silly, I'm gonna say vanilla. How about you, Speesby? What you got?
Yeah, even though I probably should stray away from said number, I do kind of like 14. The joys of swordless Trinex. You get quite a bit of menuing here.
Yeah, definitely up to his necks here in Turtle.
I don't think I even needed to groan for all of Twitch chat to hear that one.
I have regrets, and that was not one of them.
Well, 1 hour, 7 minutes, 30 seconds on Injulo hoisting their final crystal of the evening, just as Dawn makes their way into their 6th crystal. We got a dash over to the west here, a tower to open up, and a basement to scour.
That Lionel was not having it today. I don't think I've ever seen that thing just get in the way like that. Normally they defer enough that you can kind of sneak by if you come in hot with those boots. That Lionel was like, hold on a minute. You have not passed go. You cannot collect $200 and instead you can lose 2 hearts. Thank you, sir.
It always seems like they like getting in the way a little bit more often when you feel like you need to be in a rush because you just have a dash and a tower left.
All right, so this is looking like it might be a red goo, which we are absolutely going to take because that's our 2nd bottle of the day, maybe 3rd.
I believe that's Julo's 3rd.
Cool, yeah, because we do have a fairy and a blue. So yeah, we're either going to see Dark Magician strats, as in grab these 4 chests and then mirror our butts out, or we're going to see the rare as heck full left. Oh-ho!
Or not.
Alternatively,
we'll see 4 checks and a big key.
Yeah, that was quick. So
which means this
14,
seed is going to be quick.
Your 14 was just a 1 away.
Story of my life.
On that note, shout outs to plain old Jim for getting it right. want to tell him what he has gotten, Spy.
The eternal gratitude of everybody in Twitch chat for this evening, as well as a 1 free Get Out of a Cursed Seed card, assuring that your next roll from Sahabat might not be as terrible as it possibly could be. Congratulations,
Spy. Why are you making assurances for Sahabat?
Because it's not Lazy Kid.
You know, I don't have anything to say in response to that.
Look, it sounded good at the time. I just kind of went with it, and that's where we ended up. So we just go with it, right?
On that note, I would like to point out that the gauntlet is hard. Julo is a walking representation of me being wrong, but I promise I'm not. The gauntlet's hard, especially without a sword.
Was hard, I think, in this seed.
Julo doesn't care, but I swear it's difficult, guys.
There was apparently a boss in that room too, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, let's remind me not to play whack-a-mole against Julo. Oh, just late on that second one. Still nicely done though.
Definitely, I think that's one of the rooms in the climb where if you can 2-cycle that one, you go with it, since the one's rather kind of pushing it.
Meanwhile, Dawn playing Pokey Pinball.
Hey, found something in this seed that actually is trying to make a point to us.
No, not that kind of pokey. There are 4 balls on top of each other.
I mean, you know, if that's your idea of a point, I don't know.
That's why it's okay. Just quit while you're behind. Dawn gonna want to be a little careful here with 5 hearts. Trinex does hurt and doesn't particularly care what melee you have. Helps a little bit, but not as much as it otherwise could. Meanwhile, Moldorm 2 was there, I think. Hey! Vanilla, $20.
Was there and then was gone. Looks like Julo's just going to give this room a dash instead of throwing on a blue cane before going. Doesn't make it through there too terribly. Now everybody's favorite thing to do, as we were talking about earlier, the hammer Aga 2. Let's go.
Oh, this pattern's brilliant. We love that. All right, there's one. Let's go. Where's my bug net, darn it?
Right. If you can get one with the hammer per cycle, you're doing pretty darn well, I feel.
Right now, Julo is speaking binary with a 0101. All right, breaking the pattern there. That's 3 hits. Oh! And completely destroys the binary system with a double there. Oof, and then Aga 2 hits back.
No, occasionally the timing on them shooting their balls does work out like that.
I feel like this is one of the most exciting things I've ever announced. Hammer Aga 2 is a blast. As long as I don't have to play it. So what was that? 010111201?
Something in that neighborhood, yeah.
Oh, and now it's time to whack a pig with a hammer.
Yeah, you always got to tenderize your meat a little bit before you cook it.
Julo doing a great job here, dodging that trident.
Wonderful positioning for phase 2. You put yourself up there right north of Ganon just right. You don't get any kickback one or the other, and you can just keep smacking away.
Is that a frame perfect location? I'm pretty sure it is.
Pretty sure it is, because one or the other, you're gonna bounce to the left or the right. You gotta get right on the right spot there. Meanwhile, at the same time, on the right side, Dawn Venture hoisting their 7th and final crystal of the evening.
Yeah, and at 115 and a half, that is a really, really early GT climb, or GT entry as well.
Yeah, if you're Dawn, you still gotta probably feel a little good about this seed for about probably the next minute.
Right, till you see that dot done, and it's like, darn it. Jula being careful here, lining up the multiple hits. I don't know if this has room for a triple. Oh yeah, just had enough room. Look at that.
Hold my pig skewer.
All right, so that is it for Julo, successfully completing this seed in 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 13 seconds. And scene.
Dawn Venture going your route here to the right, looking for that GT big key. Fortunately, it is not going to be there this evening.
Alright, Dawn grabbing that red goo as well, and is just moments away from grabbing this big key.
There, I believe it is, having seen Julo Ninja's completed time there around the 117 mark. Dawn Venture did end up forfeiting the seed. So get your GGs in chat for both of our runners. And speaking of which, we are joined today by our winner, Julo Ninja. GGs.
GGs.
So I gotta ask, how did that feel pretty much walking into GT at like, what, 102 or something like that?
Well, I did a seed, yesterday, and I walked in about 5 minutes earlier than that. So,
Wow.
I was hoping for something that fast, but it was also bugnetless. So, Agatu was gonna ruin the time.
Right, that's kind of one of the things I feel you dread in the fast seeds is I'm not gonna run across that bug net more than likely.
Yeah.
At least they handed you the hook shot without too much difficulty.
Yeah, didn't have to, wander around GT or, just walk around the world afterwards, hoping I don't have to go into Pendant Swamp Palace without it to find it.
On that note, we are also joined by Dawn. GG's, my friend.
GG's.
GG's.
Go mode mitts is always a good time, isn't it?
Not when you last location them.
Fair.
Pretty much last location. I think I had like 3 other locations left.
Yeah, the one that Spy and I were thinking quite a bit about was a Pyramid Ledge for both of you. since we hadn't found the flippers yet, so nothing in Swamp was, relevant or around at that point.
I wonder where those flippers were, since you do kind of technically need them for Ice Palace.
I'm sure they were in like the Pyramid Ferry or something. It's fine.
Probably also in pod.
Back to Pod, Turtle Rock, Laser Bridge. I mean, somewhere they're usually sitting like that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
At least
no,
the
it
bow was
kinda-
early.
Right. Yeah, that was at least for you it was, Julo. Don didn't kind of make their way over towards Saha's closet for a little bit, admittedly. I mean, it's not a bad decision, I feel, not going over there when you don't have the bow, but when you find it there, you just kind of scratch your head and like, oh, okay, well, thanks.
Yeah, it felt really bad because like if you just like avoided the desert area, you could have just been go mode so much faster. But
Yeah, that was definitely a thing that both of you guys jumped into. I feel like the seed's pushing you that way though with that early book. Like you check both the tablets, it's like okay, nothing here, and then Desert's Green Pendant, and especially for you as you hadn't done anything in Sahasrah's closet or done Eastern Palace yet, it's like, well, if I'm gonna go over there, it would be really dumb to go over there and then come over here and then go back over there. So let's just knock all this out first.
yeah, it just felt really efficient how I wrote it, just being extra thorough, but being thorough kind of not paid off this time.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of times when you want to do that with Rando's like, but you could have skipped everything. Look, I'll show you. And then when you decide to skip one thing, Rando's like, oh no, you can't skip that. What are you doing?
Yeah, like everything was like in such a convenient position too. Like it's after you get done with the like these town areas where you like, where do you want to go next? Because you didn't really have any other crystals open, so at that point you're just gambling as to where the next progressive item is, and both the progressive items were really close to each other. And
Right.
Yep.
What we were kind of concerned about, what didn't end up happening for you, but we were kind of concerned about the potential of Catfish having those mitts and then just pushing you into clearing a bunch of crystals, and then you finally make your way back to hospital, and it's like, oh, here's your silvers, but it didn't end up being a big deal as mitts were just sitting in pod.
That sounds nicer than the potential for me just flippers in back of pod and I just clear all the pendants looking for mitts.
That was also on the table, yeah, because we still never found those flippers, and they could honestly be anywhere since there was absolutely nothing to speak of in ice that we saw. So, I mean, you guys had already done all the fetch quests, so yeah, flippers could be literally anywhere.
Other than that, do you have any general thoughts about how this seed ended up going at all on your end there, Julo?
I'm sad the bush crab wasn't bombs, so I could get many more on Cave earlier.
No, but your stun prize was 4 bombs.
I'd never check that.
I didn't check that either.
Actually, you did. You checked it in Stelphos room and got a 4 bomb drop. Yeah, Dawn, you checked it in Stelphos room like right last minute. We literally didn't see it until the race was over.
Was he even paying attention at that point?
But that was when I saw it, and I almost like just busted out laughing in the middle of like saying, okay, Dawn is forfeited, because I just saw the 4 bomb and I was just thinking about the obvious bomb difficulties that happen when you don't have a sword, don't have a weapon, and things are just terrible.
I don't think like bombs are an issue ever. You had too much money to not be able to have them.
Yeah, money was nice this seed.
Yeah, you did end up having to farm a couple in the back of Skull Woods, but again, they were readily available for your route, so it worked out.
How about on your end there, Don? Any thoughts about how things went or how the weeks looking going forward, or how about the rest of the weeks for you or your team coming up here? What you got for us?
I feel like I got really lucky in the early game finding those gloves into boots right away, but the mid game was just a whole lot of nothing, and that's how I feel the seed went. It wasn't bad. It was a really nice, generous seed. Fire rod early, have magic early, a bunch of different options for like weapons, good mail, good hearts. Like it was just nice all around.
So we pray for the opposite for our teammates, right?
Well, since you guys are already done and Swordless can't hurt you anymore, I'd say you're free to wish whatever you want.
I don't know. They might throw to spite me since I'm playing the rest of the weeks.
Me too.
That's fair. See, I was gonna say you could even maybe ask Spy to roll your seed and see if that roll your teammate seed and see if that gives you the desired result.
Man, I don't wish that kind of garbage on anybody.
Yeah, I just feel like I cursed my team. Like I got us our first loss and we haven't won a game since. So hopefully next game we can break the curse and win, and try and finish top 2.
Rando be like that, man. I also feel like I need to point out, as the aforementioned math nerd here, that Julo, your collection rate is 5 cubed of 6 cubed, and that just makes me happy.
Yeah, not intentional, but it worked out.
I was gonna say, if you were counting your collection rate and lined that up, that would be obscenely astounding.
I count at the beginning, and then it sort of trails off after the 100 mark. Just like, yeah, this is enough.
And honestly, for the Swordless seed, 100 was almost enough.
The way things were seeming there with the early game and how the items ended up laying out. Man, it darn well could. You almost could have had a spoiler seed-esque collection rate.
I mean, if the Mitts had been in Thieves Town...
Oh man.
Oh boy.
I mean, I've been like trying to do some hovers. I tell you that much. I tried so many times this seed, and it's not working out today.
Hovering's a finicky thing from what I know of it. It's one of those things where, like, you can have it solidly for 9 days, and on day 10, it just no. And then, like, you turn around on day 11 and you're hovering everything again. It's like, what happened yesterday?
You needed to hover. That's what happened.
That does seem to have something to do with it.
When you need to do something, you can't. When you don't need to do it, you can latch onto it and do it just 10 times out of 10. It never ceases to fail at anything, it seems like. All right, well, with this match behind us, it looks like that moves Beast from the East there to 4-5 with 12 points. Begone Pot sitting still at 15 at 5-4. And taking a quick look at your guys' division, ooh, boy, that's a mess right there in the middle. Yeah, everybody's got 15 or 12 points. That's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on as we continue here for the next couple of weeks. You have both Begone Pot, JK Lol, WJP, DTB, Go, and Beast from the East all in there in that 15 to 12 point area. One win, just one way or the other for any of you for that second place position. This is looking like it's going to be quite interesting going down the stretch.
Yeah, and only one of our opponents the next 2 weeks. We have Go next week. But then our last opponent is missing playoffs, which we will force them to do.
All right, that is the kind of attitude we like there. And we will be the hammer to your Gypto.
Just doing the friendly thing, making sure they live up to their namesake. You could say, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right, Spy. Down, boy, down. Don't you start. You're going to start a war in here, and I'm going to have to, like, drag your butt out, even though you don't even have a say in it.
Gotta get things a little spicy, don't you? A little bit of spiciness is fun.
Mm-hmm. On that note, if you are not done with Rando, then you need to have a wonderful reminder that Rando is not done with you. We have 2 matches starting in roughly a half an hour, so definitely keep an eye on that. There's also just a boatload of matches tomorrow as well. The match is starting in half an hour. There is one on SpeedGaming 2 and one, believe it or not, sitting right here on SpeedGaming 4. So take a look at the schedule, figure out what you want to watch everything, because just keeping an eye on people doing stuff swordless is so much fun if you like being terrible. And let's be honest, we all like being terrible a little bit.
Worth mentioning as well, the other one coming up here on SpeedGaming 4 is, I guess you could say, the second in the series between these two teams. It's Lumberjack against Homemade Beer. We'll see if their seed is just as nice or if it's going to be absolutely freaking terrible to make up for how nice this one was.
I'm going to go ahead and put 1,000 channel points on not as nice as this one was.
With all that in mind, do either of you, Don or Julo, have any closing statements here for us, or curses to put on your either teammates or opponents coming up here in half an hour?
I guess let's bless them with finding the bug net at least. However, it's just too painful.
Thanks for picking up commentary on this at last minute, basically.
Yeah,
and
no
thanks
big.
to the tracker too.
Yep, shout outs to our tracker Marcel for hitting the buttons. Trackers can sometimes be finicky, but he did his best running through stuff. And then on that note, shout outs to both of you guys. You guys played really well. Obviously the seed was nice in terms of overall timing, but it takes a heck of a lot of execution to make that a good time. So shout outs to both of you guys. If you haven't followed these runners, what are you doing? Do it. And final shout out to Spy, who was my co-com and dealt with my insanity. Always a blast, man.
Definitely enjoyed it. Always fun hopping up here with you, producing a wonderful match for our lovely audience, and it's always much easier when we have the quality of runners that we did today, just making easy work of a seed that really didn't give you too much in ways of making sure things were easy, but it just kind of laid everything right in your way right away. So like you said, it was a quick time, but it also takes great execution to live up to that quick time that the seed's kind of trying to lead you to. And I think with that as well, on behalf of everyone at SpeedGaming, for us up here in the booth, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. Stay tuned, because in a half an hour we got another match coming your way with more rando to come up this weekend. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.